Guys, just to let you know that I am going live on Instagram, and that's what you will be watching. So I will be looking between two places, just so that you know that. Hello, hello Instagram, hello YouTube. I want to know, first of all, how are you? I'm going to be talking about the inner critic, but before we do that, I always think it's really important just to check in. How are you? Are you in a space to receive this information? Perhaps there is an inner voice already saying, you don't have the time to be listening to this, or your inner critic work doesn't ever work for you, so what's the point? You can hello that, say hello to it. You can welcome it during our chat today. You'll see me looking between two places. But yeah, we're going to talk about your inner critic. I'm going to relate it to that of just our daily lives. We all have an inner critic. Some people might call it an inner bully. What do you tend to call it? Do you have a name for it? I know some people name their inner critic, but what do you tend to call it? I'm just going to explain today some links between your inner critic. Of course, I do a lot of work around relationships, so I will make that link to working with insecure attachment and that voice that we have that tells us we're not enough, that tells us everything that's going to go wrong, everything that we should be doing or shouldn't be doing. But what is it that you say? Do you call it your inner critic? Do you call it your inner bully? Tell me. Maybe you're here because you've been doing this work. Maybe you're here because the title talked to you. But I'm guessing straight away that there's a reason you're attracted to something around inner critic work. But just be mindful of whether you have the space to go and put things into action. You might just be in receiving mode today, where you're just going to take some of this information on, or you might be in a place where you're like, I'm going to actually put this into action. I meet you where you are. I meet my clients where they are. So you just take in whatever space you're in. What I am going to say is that as we go, I am going to be letting you know where you can go from this platform. So if you're watching on Instagram or YouTube, that you can go a bit more deeper and be more connected with the work that I do. So do be mindful that I might be giving like instructions that you can go here or go there. That can be confusing. You might not feel like that. Your inner critic, wait until I explain this a little bit more, might be like, no way are we going deeper into this, because your inner critic wants to stay exactly where you are. It wants to stay where you are. It doesn't want to go deeper. It's actually protecting you. Let me explain that. It's actually protecting you. I did get asked a question basically this week about how to work with that inner critic, that inner bully. So one of the challenges that I see the most with people that I work with, so to work with me, I work with people in a membership space, which is an online community, and I work with people one-to-one. One of the biggest challenges that I see, and I have always seen this, not just around inner critic work, but around when you want to make change in your life, is when that self-awareness starts to build. So you've started to get the education, you've started to have the aha moments, you're taking in the information. Okay, I'm seeing my inner critic, I know how I talk to myself, I'm recognizing my triggers, but still finding that balance between how to quieten it down, how to live with it, how to challenge it, accept it, all the different options that we have. That's the difficulty, actually putting this into action. Now, I work in a slightly different way. My background is in cognitive behavioral therapy, so I'm all for reframing. I do an awful lot of reframing and challenging my thoughts. But I believe that there's a whole other level first. And it's more of an approach. It's not necessarily something that you have to go and do. So who believes that you don't have to do anything to change? Sometimes it is about being with ourselves, listening to ourselves, and change and healing happens. This is how I guide my membership, my one-to-ones. So in terms of your I'm calling it inner critic, call it whatever you like, as I've said already. But in terms of that self-doubt that comes in, and let's be honest, today you could be having a day full of self-doubt, and then tomorrow all of a sudden it feels like, oh, this work is totally paying off and I'm on top of my inner critic. And it just really can depend on the day, your mood, your situation, your relationship status, how you're being treated. It depends on so many different things, how awake and loud your inner critic is. But like I say, that challenge is, I recognize it, I know it, Carly, but how do I actually do something about it? We're on Instagram and YouTube, so we've got to be realistic. I am going to give you some encouragements of things that you can take into consideration that is going to help you. And I'm also going to let you know how you can connect deeper to your inner critic. But number one is to know that we all have an inner critic. Okay, so self-compassion. Okay, if we want to manage our inner critic, we need to be able to invite in self-compassion, at least the idea of it. And one of the principles of self-compassion is to know that your pain is universal. So let's kick off with that. We all have an inner critic. I am not here to promise you or to tell you that I'm going to get rid of your inner critic. I'm not magic. I'm not superhuman. I can support you to live with, to quieten it down, to understand, to hear it, but not to get rid of it. That if you see someone promising you to get rid of their inner critic, they should be an absolute millionaire, especially if they manage to do it. So just know that, okay, we all have an inner critic. Some people's experience is that it's louder. Some people's experience is that their inner critic is more like you're stuck in it more, you believe it more, you're associated with it, you're merged with it, you're in it. I see that especially with insecure attachment. So if there is insecure attachment, it does tend to be that you might be more stuck with your inner critic. It might be louder, those kind of things that you really live like with it, in it. And that's the thing. So part of the work that I do is around changing the relationship you have with your inner critic. I'm going to say the voice, but to be honest with you, it doesn't just communicate with you through voice. It communicates with you through feeling. It communicates with you through images, communicates with you by negatively predicting the future and telling you what you can't do, or it communicates with you by saying, you're ridiculous, you're stupid. So it might be naming you, it might be personal, might be telling you what you can't do in the future, might be telling you what you should have done in the past, has different ways of communicating. And this is the difference where if we're on Instagram or we're doing group work, we can teach this generally and give you some instructions to try and support you one-to-one. We can go in and really see what are the different ways that this is communicating with you. And just another point, just because it's landing, because it's such a show. I know that not everyone watches things all the way through. So if you're still here, if you're watching this, wherever you're Instagram, YouTube, then you get these gems. But there, you must remember there is a part of you that criticizes. You have your inner critic. What does that mean? It means that there's a part of you that's also receiving that, that's on the receiving end. And we have to be there for both parts. Why would I be there for my inner critic, my inner bully? Because your inner critic, your inner bully, I shouldn't be pointing when I'm saying that, I'm sorry. Your inner critic, your inner bully is afraid of something. Take that in. In fact, if you don't take anything else away, take that. Your inner critic, your inner bully is afraid of something. And there's a whole process we can go through. I'm going to teach you this. So this is when I said I'm going to send you from this platform to another. If you want to go deeper on this, on the 3rd of July, it's not the 1st, 3rd of July, inside Follow Your Fire, my membership for attachment styles and rediscovering yourself, I will be teaching this process inside our advanced anxious attachment masterclass. So I will be teaching you the process of recognizing and listening to your inner critic. That's what it needs. That's what it wants. That's what's healing. That's why we think, right, I've got to go and do this. And what's this formula? Let's listen first. less listen because it's afraid of something. So I will teach you that process in this masterclass on the 3rd. It's because I usually run them on the 1st, the 3rd of July. So if you want to go deeper than that, join that. DM me if you're like, how do I join that? It's inside Follow Your Fire, my membership. If you're watching this after the 3rd, the replay will be available where I will teach you that process to communicate with your inner critic. And this is really fresh on my mind at the moment because just yesterday I had 2 one-to-one clients, and I'm not just doing this thing where I say, oh, I had this with my clients. I had 2 one-to-one clients yesterday where we were truly exploring their relationship with their inner critic and listening to what they need, what it doesn't need, how it communicates with you, like I say. But for you to take away, it's afraid of something and it's not communicating with you very well. It's communicating with you like a child would, right? It's shouting, it's screaming, or a parent who also is dysregulated probably in that moment, shouting, demanding, communicating with demand. Imagine when you're communicating to people, if we can communicate from a place of just, we don't have to be fully regulated, we're human, but where we're not demanding. So usually if there's insecure attachment, there's a disconnection with communication through no fault of your own. You can relearn that as well. But you communicate indirectly, you communicate quite like with demand or withdrawing. And that can really happen with the inner critic. It tends to be that demanding side. So you can think of it like that. Someone who's like really dysregulated is just throwing their toys at the pram, as we might say, and just shouting. And we can't hear, because you know what happens when someone shouts at you and calls you names and tells you that you're not good enough and says the worst thing in the world is going to happen and you believe it. You're in a state of survival. You're not calm in those moments. So you can't hear what's really happening because you're in survival. So you can't really hear your inner critic. So the inner critic needs the space, you need the space, you need to meet each other. You are one whole person, of course. It's just ways to understand this. But I really like to meet you with your inner critic in a different way. I'm not going to go into that anymore. I feel like that's enough information to soak up. I can expand on it perhaps in another video. If you want that, please like this, please comment or DM me and let me know. I don't feel like it's useful to just throw information at you, but if you do want to go deeper into that process, then join the masterclass on the 3rd of July inside Follow Your Fire, or just come and join Follow Your Fire. Over there, you have resources on inner critic. There is masterclasses, like I say, that are coming up that support you with that. There's things that you can be looking at and doing right now. Yes, just yesterday I did a live meditation to support going in when you're triggered, activated. It's called resourcing. That would be really helpful as well. So there's certainly things that you can do over in the membership. There's a course on the membership, a short course on self-compassion. So if you do feel like I want to expand more with the education and the knowledge and the support, I recommend that. If you know that you've tried all of those things and you're ready for more direct support with yourself, then I definitely recommend one-to-one if that's something that is available to you right now, or something you feel able to do or cool to do, all of those things. But you don't have to go and do anything now. I'm just giving you that information to soak up. If you naturally feel like there is a next step for you, then take it. I support you. Why not? I hope that that's been useful. As always, let me know. I'm Carly Ann. I'm a attachment coach, holistic methods, holistic all body approach for healing attachment wounds, so that you can have better relationships with yourself as well, not just with others. I'm doing the pointing thing again. Okay, do not forget, you're enough, you're lovable, you're so worthy, and you are irreplaceable.